really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen of all ages. We are back again for another episode of Book Club. Tonight we're covering The Power of Now. Yes, I understand that my secondhand copy looks rather janky, and because of that, I didn't understand that the actual subtitle of this was that a guide to spiritual enlightenment. And that is a lot of what the book is talking about. I thought it was going to be about decisiveness and making decisions, but I was very wrong. However, at the same time, I gotta say, this is a very, very interesting book, and it's going to spark a lot of conversation tonight. So with that being said, I will admit, or I tell you what, we'll just go through the panel introductions first. We have someone brand new to the co-host spot tonight, and we are very excited for it. It is none other than our very own producer and Mrs. McGettit. How you doing? You might be busy.
Sorry, one sec there. I'm getting farmer added. Okay.
There you go. Sorry, yeah, you're doing the producing and the co-hosting. How's it going this lovely evening for you?
Going good. We're finally getting our voices back around here, so that's been nice. Mine is still a little, I guess sensitive might be a good word. If I talk too much or I don't have water frequently, it'll go in and out. So.
Fair enough, fair enough. Tell you what, we were going to give Farmer Jay as much time as possible. The man just got back from work, so we appreciate him hopping on the stream. So with that being said, I'll pass it over to Nate. What's going on, my man?
Hey, yeah, I got off work not too long ago either, but yes, good job, Farmer Jay. Keep it up. Also, this book was, I originally was not going to read this book and get on the stream or nothing. I was going to do something else, but Mrs. McGettit was like, no, you got to do this. We got to do it. I'm like, all right. I'll listen to it. I'm not going to lie. Like, at least for the first 3 to 4 chapters, like, it really did truly cut deep for me. Like, there's a lot of information for me to kind of soak in. I will say it's a little magical woo-woo-y, but if you kind of replace those words maybe with a little more logical wording, like conscientiousness or like logical processes, then it's like, okay, now I understand what he's talking about. And there's a lot of things you can take from this book. So we're going to get into that. But for right now, we do have another panelist right over here. Sam Stevenson, what is up?
Hey, everybody. Well, I did not just get off work. And you know why, kids? It's because when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And you know how to love what you do? You live in the power of now, damn it. That's right. So, something about the power of now. Man, this has been a great book. I have loved a lot about this book, and I think there's a lot of interesting things we're going to peel open. I'm excited to get into it. I'm all fired up. I'm driving around to go do a job that's very power of now-y, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. So I'm just excited to be here and excited to talk about it. Who's next?
That would be none other than Farmer Jay. What is going on, my man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Sorry for being a little late. I got caught up in work.
How dare
somebody
you?
Decided
you kicked off.
Somebody decided last week to leave me in charge of the job site, which is a horrible idea. But yeah. So that's why I missed last week. Had a bad concrete pour. I actually had a bad concrete pour today as well, but we were able to resolve that a little bit earlier than last week.
What was wrong with the concrete?
Well, it wasn't us. It was they were moving their forms around and they were shifting our conduits around, so we had to stay there to make sure our conduits were nice and square. If anybody doesn't know what a conduit is, it's just a pipe that carries electrical conductors.
Well, that's good. It's better than the truck showing up way too late and your concrete's already starting to dry inside of there. So
Absolutely,
There
absolutely.
could be worse, but at the same time,
This
though,
was a
dude,
great book, though. It was a great book, though. Like I actually went through it twice, and like it made me like I guess how Nate said it. Like it made me think a couple times twice. Like it was quite an interesting book. Like I had a kind of difficulties understanding it, but like it had some great topics in it, like how you think and like how you process things. Like it was a very interesting read.
yeah, it's a thinking book, all right, but also ironically, it's a not thinking book.
Yeah,
We'll
it
get
is.
more
It
into
is.
that
It is right.
later.
Absolutely.
I will say though, my man, I feel like your plan over the last 2 weeks has just gone to shit because you originally told us like, yeah, I don't have to work for another month, and then the next week you're like, yeah, I'm back on the job site, and now this week you're running the dang job site. What is going on, dude?
I don't know who. Somebody made a bad choice to leave me in charge, but there I am in charge of the job. You know, they decided I'll be acting foreman for the next couple months to finish off the job.
I bet they're in good hands. We have high hopes and high expectations of you. You know you're going to crush it either way. So
you have more hopes than me than I do.
have some confidence, my man. You got this. You got this.
Absolutely, it'll get done. It'll get done. At the end of the day, it needs to get done, so it'll get done.
Perfect. All right, Mrs. Producer, if you don't mind, we don't have Will tonight, but we are still absolutely going to do chat shoutouts because we are very excited to see everybody getting in here early, getting fired up for what's going on tonight. And this is going to be a bit of a different book club, if I have to imagine, because fair warning, turns out this is not a financial advice book. This is more of I'm going to call it a philosophy book. That's probably the best way to describe it. Anybody have disagreements or a better description?
No, I would call it that kind of philosophy, lifestyle.
I'd consider it more psychological. You know,
Yeah.
how to get your mind right, but mindset. That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's
Lively
very
mindset.
interesting, right? It's
Mindset
like
core level,
very different from what we dealt with before. But like you said, it's very interesting book. Makes you think.
True. I'd actually argue that this book chooses to make religious arguments, not in the sense of like actually being part of a specific religion, but of more of that illogical spiritualistic sense, which is that I know Cass and I were talking about this before the stream, which is that there's a lot of parts in here that don't exactly follow pure logic and honestly kind of fall trapped to some logical fallacies, which we will talk about. However, the point of the book is to actually escape your own mind, which means that you kind of got to stop thinking with your brain and start thinking with the heart a little bit, even though that doesn't make sense in and of itself really, because the heart is emotion and the brain is logic and thinking is logic. But if you can escape the logic of your own brain, you'll reach a higher level of thinking, or as this book calls, being. So I'm sure that's going to be the buzzword for tonight.
You look as confused as I was when I was going over the book.
I had a very interesting relationship with reading this book, and I'll get into it shortly after a chat shoutouts, but I also want to ask you guys that as well. Right now, though, we do, Mrs. Producer, if you do not mind, if we have the chats, I would love to shout out some good folks, because up first, we do have our good friend 54 Cent.
Okay. Sounds great. But first off, everybody,
Yes,
are you ready for chat shoutouts?
Absolutely. Hey, shout out to Tam Tam. Shout out to Tam Tam.
Yeah. Mrs. McGettit, you're being a fantastic co-host already. We don't have Will, but we might have someone even better. Or different.
And shout out to Agent Jane.
Way better.
My favorite second minority on the DJ Roundtable.
True. Just wait till Dre gets in here.
He's my third. I am first.
Oh,
I love myself more than anybody else.
All right, here we go. Up force, Centurion 54X or 54 Cent. He says, "What's up, D-Gens? Flying across the country today, so he will catch the replay. First chat as always. Good to see you in here, man, and we will see you on the replay or next time we catch you live, which is probably going to be Sunday, I imagine." Already up next, we have number 2, Moonmutt. He says, "Hello, my D-Gen friends. Happy to be here today, as we all are. Good Friday. Fridays are great, man. End of the work week, feeling good." So we got, all right, up next, we got Jenna Nelson. She says, "Hey, happy Friday." Hey, Jenna, happy Friday to you as well. Hope your work week went well and hope you have fun plans for the weekend. If you have any and you want to tell us, drop it in the chat and we'll highlight it later. Up next, we have one of our very own, Agent J of the DGen Roundtable. He says, "Sell everything," Kramer said, but Bitcoin with some GameStop profits. yeah, for those folks at home that might not have been staring at the charts like Jay and I have been all day, we had a bit of a dump today. I think Ethereum actually took like an 11 or 12 point dip, which was kind of wild and kind of unexpected. So yeah, a bunch of the other altcoins bled as well. Because yeah, 2 days ago, Ethereum was about like almost 3,900. Today it's like 3,650 and some change, and even got down to the 35s. So a lot of stuff going on in the market, but this is not a market show. This is a book show, and we're going to get back to that. And by the way, we're going to finish out with one of our favorite people in the community, and I'm still going to claim it. Number one cheerleader in the crypto space, not Hexagon, not Pulse Chain, but obviously those, but just crypto space in general. It's her right here. She is number one, and we love having her with us every step of the way. You bring a lot of great energy, and she says, "What's up, fam?" Good to see you, Tam Tam. Thanks for stopping by. Alrighty, that is what we got for chat shoutouts. I'm going to go ahead and tell a little story, which is that I did what I typically do, which is I usually read the book Thursday and Friday. I start Thursday, finish Friday, compile my show notes with the rest of the DRT stuff that I do on Fridays, and then get ready for the show, which we're doing right now. I went to bed after reading chapter 3, which was the chapter on time, or how time is in relation to people. If you go look through the book club telegram about the quotes that I pulled out, I probably was not very happy, because in my opinion, I didn't realize it yet, but after chapter 3, the book gets a lot better in my opinion. So I went to bed absolutely just like frustrated, just thinking about like, this is such bullshit. I hate this so much. This makes no sense. And then when I woke up this morning and we got back into this, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This feels good. So I've had a roller coaster of emotions with this book. How about you guys?
Zenith doesn't
That
quite
sounds like
sound
that's what we
we're
were
able
trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't able to step out of his emotions, and
Dude, I was unconscious that whole time. I was not being with the book. I was unbeing.
He was in the future. He was thinking about the future.
Yeah, I listened to it twice, and like the first time I kind of got caught up in my emotions, and the second time I try to separate myself from emotion and just try to listen to the message, which I still didn't get, but I attempted to, like keep your emotions out of it, like. But as human beings, we are emotional creatures, so like our emotions are tied in.
Farmer, I think you kind of just hit it on the head right there, which was that, like, if you get caught up in exactly what the book is saying, you're going to have a bad time. But if you just try to get the message and try to understand what it's trying to convey, even the book says it a little bit of itself when it talks about, like, the idea of words or diction or definitions and attaching it to certain things. It's like, you can use different words, but he's trying to convey, like, a truth or something that you can discover without being told. So it's like that, it's not a feeling, but it's that discovery kind of thing, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of feel like I had a little bit of an advantage over what you two are describing there, because one thing he said either in the introduction or very early in chapter 1 was to look at this book as though it's completely like brand new content and to not compare it to anything else you've read that might be related, that is a self-help book, to get rid of all that. And as soon as he said that, I basically did that. So I came into it right away with kind of being prepared to try not to compare it to anything else, like to actively kind of make that distinction in my mind. But I will say one thing that kept popping up for me, and some people may be able to relate to this, some people may not, but if you've ever seen the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, he goes through a point where he has to learn to disconnect from reality. And the big part of that is he has to learn to give up Katara. And he's like, how can I ever give up Katara? I love her.
It's actually funny you mentioned this exact thing, because I did pull this up and primed it for a clip that I wanted to describe.
Really? Oh, that's funny. But I mean, we'll go. I guess we'll go ahead and play your clip, though. It's probably what I'm talking about. But that kept going through my mind like over and over again while I was reading this book. I was like, that scene kept coming back up for me.
For sure. I don't know if this is going to get us a copyright strike or not. I hope not. But at the same time, the way that Aang feels about this in Last Airbender is exactly how I felt reading this. And I'm like, okay, this can relate, and I hope that people can feel what we're trying to convey here. So let me know if the audio is not coming through, but other than that, here we go.
This is the last chakra, isn't it?
Yes. Once you open this chakra, you will be able to go in and out of the avatar state at will. And when you are in the avatar state, you will have complete control and awareness of all your actions.
Let's do this.
The thought chakra is located at the crown of the head. It deals with pure cosmic energy and is blocked by earthly attachment. Meditate on what attaches you to this world. Now, let all of those attachments go. Let them flow down the river, forgotten.
What? Why would I let go of Katara? I love her.
Learn to let her go, or you cannot let the pure cosmic energy flow in from the universe.
Why would I choose cosmic energy over Katara? How could it be a bad thing that I feel an attachment to her? 3 chakras ago, that was a good thing.
You must learn to let go.
That is pretty much the feeling that I had, which is the author, the narrator is like, you have to embrace the being in the moment. There's no past, no future, just the present and being in the conscious. And any of your body or emotions will take you to the unconscious, and you have to be conscious. And then also at the same time, your logical brain is just screaming out like, hold on a minute. I thought like 3 chapters ago, all this was a good thing. Now you're telling me it's not?
You know, it's funny you say that, because I started trying to I understood the concept of like trying to get into the now, so I started trying to do that. But then I was like, wait a minute, so he was saying not to do this, but then I should be doing this, and I literally started getting into this thought loop of just I should not be doing that, but I should be doing that, but I should not be doing that, but I should be doing that. I can go into more details later, but yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, Z. That was like, what the hell? Actually putting it into practice. I'm arguing with myself and my own brain over here.
Exactly. So I had a bit of a rant to my friend. So my best friend that I live with, whatever. I told him, I was like, hey, have you ever read this book? And he's washing dishes in the kitchen, and I'm sitting at the bar, and he turns around and he goes, oh, that's not a Zenith book. This is not for you. And I was like, what? How do you know that? And he's like, trust me, I know you and I know this book, and it's not for you, brother. And I was like, okay, fine. But at the end of it, I got to the end of it. I've not had a chance to talk to him again because he's been busy today. But I was like, all right, I think I get it. Not all of it, but I get it. And the thing is, like, if you try to logically follow everything, you're going to get very confused. I know we're at friggin' 18 minutes into the video. We're not like diving into the exact details of the book just yet. We'll get to the fastest 5-minute summary in 1 second where I lose my breath. But the point is that if you pay attention to very specific things from the logical standpoint, it might contradict itself. Like, let me pull up one of the quotes that I wrote down for this. Shoot, where's my book club? Here we go. So chapter 3 in particular is the one that I had a lot of qualms with, but it's specifically about like time and the human aspect of time. And this one is like, the quote is, end the delusion of time. Time and mind are inseparable. If you remove time from the mind, then it stops unless you choose to use it. To be identified with your mind is to be trapped in time. The compulsion to live almost exclusively through thought and anticipation. And then again, it keeps going. It's like you can never reach a point free from your problems because you are at that point now. There is no salvation in time. You cannot be free in the future. Presence is the key to freedom, so you can only be free now. And then at one point, it also literally does the whole like a tree falls in the forest thing, which is that if there are no people on Earth to observe time, does time still happen? And it's like my inner like me reading the book is screaming out like, yes, things still happen in the objectable universe. Like there's a chronological order things, but it's like that is, in my opinion, kind of missing the point. So that's what we got. I'll pass it over to you guys. Any thoughts before we go into the
indeed missing the point, Zenith. For sure. It's like the point is like you're thinking like, yes, okay, when something happens in the universe without people, yes, it still happens in a chronological order, but you do not exist to care, and therefore nothing else is going to exist to care. That's the point it's making, you know?
So
Go for
how
it,
about
Nate.
this one? Let me throw this one at you.
Hit me.
All right. So the universe does not exist without your observation. The reason being is, number one, because your universe is you, so therefore the universe only exists as you in your own universe sees it. Number two, electrons don't actually act like electrons unless you observe them. Or sorry, photons, my bad. AKA light doesn't act like light unless you observe them. So therefore, kind of like in a video game rendering, right? There is no video game behind you until you move the character to actually witness it. And then the computer can generate the world for you. Did I go over everyone's head?
My mind is blown.
That's fair. I'll tell you what. We'll get into it at this point. So I'm going to go through the list of chapters and a quick summary for each of them. And then the way that I want to run the show tonight is I want to cover things that we liked and understood, and then move into things that we maybe didn't agree with or didn't understand. And then after that is when I want each of us to kind of like on air give the thesis or the summary or like what is the point of the book. And then after that, if we have additional time, which I anticipate we will, hopefully, I want to talk to you guys about how you think this book interplays or relates or specifically diverges from other major philosophical ideas, such as like the Enlightenment, individuality, group collection, that kind of stuff. And then also nihilism, because I think one of the points that I personally want to share is that I think if you misread this book, you can absolutely spiral into nihilism. And the point is not that nothing matters. The point is that life matters, and that being in the conscious mind is the most important thing, not accepting that everything outside of that is meaningless, but that is an important thing. So, not to try to put my book out there too much, but here we go. Alrighty, so if I'm not mistaken, this book has 10 chapters. Yes, it does. So up first, we have You Are Not Your Mind. This chapter kind of introduces the idea that you have multiple aspects. So you have your body, you have your mind, between them you have emotions, and then outside of that, they don't the author doesn't explicitly talk about what it is, but you can kind of imagine it as like the soul, or something that is beyond a life that is beyond the restraints of the physical universe, and the thing that can theoretically consciousness, thank you, the thing that can effectively transcend time. So from a traditional religious aspect, this is the idea that like you have a soul here on earth that will also transcend once you go through death. You get to the idea where it's either heaven, hell, reincarnation, purgatory, whatever your thing is. It's the idea of that being in that sort of like soul is where you want to be, to try to escape the limits of your own brain and the limits of your body. So speaking of which, we have chapter 2, Consciousness, the way out of pain, which is exactly that, trying to escape the body, trying to escape the feelings. And then after that, we get moving deeply into the now. This is where the author really starts to describe the idea of being in the present or being in the now. The idea is that you can have memories of the past and you can look forward things in the future, but if you do that, then you're explicitly ignoring the idea of existing in the moment, existing right now in this second, in the current moment about what's going on. And I believe this is the first time where the author brings up the idea with being discontent between your life situation and your life. The life is more of reference to that soul, or the idea that it is the entirety of your lifespan, not just the exact moment where you are in this moment in time, which is like, I'm hungry, I need a burrito. That is a life situation, not your life. Your life is the collective of your entire journey of the soul, theoretically. Up next, we have Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. This is honestly my favorite chapter. I'll throw it out there. But this is the one where he talks about how if you stay in your emotions and you stay in your body, you will kind of be pulled around by the currents and the events of the world. So if you can understand your emotions and your feelings and how you think about things, and you can kind of have this, what the author describes as a detached or third-party view of observing yourself, which is you could almost have like an out-of-body experience where like you are the camera that is looking down at your body going through it, and that through the lens of that third-party camera, that is the idea of the soul and your consciousness and where you can exist within that. So up next we have chapter 5, which is the state of presence. So presence is, it's a lot about being in the moment. It's about experiencing what's going on within you. It's the idea that if you are of the world and you try to interact with the world, you will fail to escape that world and get to that higher level of conscious. And that is what he describes as being unconscious, which is that you are kind of trapped by whatever is going on in the material, physical, social plane, and that you're not going to escape it. If I'm not mistaken. So, okay, no, the next one is the inner body. This is where he kind of takes a step back, which is up until this point, the book has been trying to get you to think outside of yourself and try to think on the plane that is above body, mind, and now go to soul or conscious. But now it's kind of going backwards a little bit to understand how you go from one to the other. So it's your inner body, or understanding what's going on with that. It talks a little, I'm not gonna lie, we're gonna have to toss it over to Mrs. McGettit for a bit here, because there is a rather lengthy section of the book where the guy talks about the women's menstrual cycle as a historic log of female angst and suffering throughout history that every woman today still feels and will continue to feel forever, and is part of the menstrual cycle. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that maybe later if we feel like it. And then lastly, we get into portals of the unmanifested. The idea of portals is honestly the more interesting section of this book, in my opinion, because this is the section where this is almost in exact opposition to the Sci-Vive chapter that we covered last week, which was Richard Hart tries to spit game and pick up girls at the club, versus this one is you can experience love, and love is an experience that comes through the portal when you achieve consciousness. And if you have a partner, or like a girlfriend or a wife, that also achieves that level of consciousness, you can experience love as a result of that, which is that love is the thing that comes through all the portals when your mind is in alignment with the consciousness. And then up next, we have Enlightened Relationship, Chapter 8. This is where it really expands upon this idea. It's the idea of love and hate and experiencing things where you are, and how consciousness or unconsciousness can drag you down to the other. And you can't really drag the other person up. You have to experience that on your own. And then once you have met someone that is also at that conscious level, that is when you can really experience that higher level of existence. All right, 2 more to go. Chapter 9, we have Beyond Happiness and Unhappiness, There is Peace. This is the idea that happiness and unhappiness, or almost as the author also refers to it as joy. I think I have a quote for this one. Pleasure is something from outside of you, but joy comes from within. But even this, the author talks about the idea that you're trying to achieve something even outside of those, which is that consciousness comes from the soul, which is from that backstepped look. So pleasure is from the world, joy is from inside, and then consciousness is from above all of that. And then lastly, the last chapter is The Meaning of Surrender. This is possibly the most practical chapter in the book, although I would also argue that the book argues against the idea of practicality when trying to understand these concepts, which is that the idea of this is the most practical advice of how to get to that conscious level, which is that to get to the conscious level, you have to surrender control, or surrender the idea that you can think yourself to that conscious level. It starts to get into the idea of like meditation, the idea of like how to physically achieve it, like through silence. I think one of the quotes is that even through all the noise, you should still be able to see the silence below it, or in the gaps, or outside of the noise. It's the idea that you can look out into space and see that space itself is a thing and also nothing at the same time. And to like marry these ideas and understand it will give you an understanding of what is going on outside of you, and how to like just be in that moment in the larger space, but also detached from the larger space. All right. That is all I have for the summary. The very first thing I do want to do, though, I forgot to mention this, is that I want to pass this around as a concept that the author talked about, which is the idea of diction or language or definition, or trying to define things, which the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight is obviously very kind of like metaphysical, or as I talked about previously, I think it's more of religious arguments. Exactly, Nate. Exactly. But so when you do that, you can't get hung up on definitions and words to describe things, because the word you're using is probably not entirely accurate, but it's a way that you are trying to express a way that people interact with the universe, and that everyone, regardless of the language they speak, should be able to experience these things if done correctly. Or I guess the book would argue there's also no correct way to do this, but you just have to experience it. And once you experience it, you can do it again. For Jay out there, it's like the season 1 fight between Yuji and Toto, and the the nature spirit. It's the idea that once you've tasted these flavors, you can never unsee them, but you also are able to speak in a language that people have never tasted this thing will never be able to understand. It's like that glass, the glass barrier that once broken, you can never go back, but unless you go through it, you will never actually know what's on the other side. It's that. So that's what we're trying to talk about. So what do you guys think about language and the author's relationship with language on this one? Does that make sense? Like, don't get hung up on the words, but try to understand the message. Yeah,
So
go for it, Nate.
Like I said at the very beginning, you can change the interpretation of the words. Let me put it this way, okay? How do you describe something that you really don't have words for? How do humans usually do that? Let me go ahead and put it this way, okay? 12,000 years ago, when we as humans were still like in caves, right? All right. Suddenly you have an F-14 fly overhead. Okay. Those humans are going to look at that and go, what is that? It's very loud and it's flying very fast. It's like a big bird, but it's as fast as lightning. It's very booming like thunder. It's a thunderbird, you know? Boom. You've just described it. And then throughout the years, throughout the centuries, you always tell the kid about the thunderbird you saw. So how is it that we humans are going to, today sit there and be like, okay, so we have all this science. We kind of know how processes work. We know how things work up here. So how are we going to describe this feeling of like spiritual openness or, some kind of energy field or something like that? Well, there really is no other way to describe it other than that. It's like, how do I describe thinking something, and I can hear the voice in my own head thinking it. And so then I start creating another thought thinking that talks with that thinking process. Like, how do I what is that? Well, that consciousness could be something as close to akin to a spirit. It's not just my brain doing thought stuff. It is also a spirit within me that looks at my physical brain and then starts talking to it. Makes sense? We cannot hear you, Zenith.
Thank you. So to bring it back to the language idea, how would you say that, is having a 100% accurate description of what you're trying to talk about important, or is it more important to try to get that general idea across so that others can experience it?
It's about understanding it.
There we go. Okay.
The best understanding we can get.
Cool. All right. Jay, Farmer Jay, what you got? I know you mentioned this previously, which is that it's very easy to get lost in the words, but you got to understand the message. Any more thoughts on that one?
Not really on this particular subject, but so I'll pass on this one for now. I'll have more later.
Fair enough. Did we lose Sam, or is he just in the background of something?
It looks like we lost him for now. We'll give him a few seconds. Sorry.
Wait for him to come back. But Mrs. McGettit, what do you think? Before we get into the deeper discussion, the idea of language and diction and definition, how do you feel about that and how it interplays with the ideas in this book?
Honestly, I'm a little bit confused by the question. Could you give me a little bit, just kind of more to start with?
For sure. So if you remember last time, I think Will actually had a funny moment with Nate on stream, which was that they were talking about the definitions of words, but then brought up the idea that Richard Hart talked about, which is that if you're arguing over definition or the specificity of the word, then you've already lost the point. I think it's something similar in this book, which is the author says that you're probably never going to be able to 100% describe exactly what's going on. But the idea is not that you describe it well, but that you at least grasp the concept and are able to think about that and try to convey it to other people when you're talking about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha. I think I pretty much agree with what Nate was saying, that the most important part is that understanding. It is that connection. And words actually can sometimes interfere with that. But at the same time, I guess I am a person who is very fond of words and good with words. At least I like to think I am. So that's a little bit more difficult for me. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a little more difficult for me to kind of wrap my mind around, because that's my main source to do this. So maybe that's something that I need to practice a little more.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Tell you what, let's not dwell on this one too much longer. I want to start passing this around the table, and we'll go with Sam first, which is, Sam, Are there any specific chapters or ideas that really resonated with you? Like, what was your favorite part, or what stuff kind of made the most sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. So, as y'all may know, I'm a fan of cold water, dangerous things, and climbing towers. And all three of those have something in common. And all three of them are things that make me have to live in the moment. I can think about nothing else. It's arguably not even thinking sometimes, right? When you are just so present in the moment that you, like, I'm not worrying about my bills on Tuesday when I'm on a tower. I'm really not. I'm thinking about what I'm doing so that I don't have to think about the ground. So I think one of the things that stuck out to me the most from this book was the importance of making sure you're living in the now, or at least exercising it, so that you basically gain better emotional control. So as he was describing some of the things in the book, he was saying, like, okay, you need to be like, your emotions are positive and negative, but they are reactions to the things life will throw at you. And so there exists a space in which you can have consciousness where you can basically see that you're experiencing emotion, but you itself are not part of the emotion. You're like, oh, like I can observe that this thing is happening. And I will say it's very, very beneficial to be able to go through life and observe your emotions and not act from them. I would argue that that's the thing we talk about frequently on this beautiful book club. So what came to my mind was when he was like, wow, so there's a little nugget he dropped in there that was basically along the lines of, you should experience the now more, because the more you experience it, the more you are going to be able to disassociate yourself from your own emotions. And what came to mind from that for me was my brother Will, who's unfortunately not here with us today. But Will has a very special ability to be very analytical and separate emotion from a situation. And I was thinking about, like, man, like, kind of connected a bunch of, this guy connected a bunch of dots for me, right? And this is the realization that I came to while reading the book that I was telling you about before. Will has spent probably way more time than any of us existing in the now as a requirement of the job being on the tower, and possibly being in the military, being in a dangerous situation. Like, there's a bunch of things that kind of added up. Even before that, guys, I don't know if you knew this about Will, but he spent a lot of time climbing stuff beforehand. So he's been in that environment for a long time. And what got me wondering was, like, man, I wonder if he's got 10,000 hours being in the now. And it's like, man, it makes you think, like, how you ought to spend, like, this is just one more thing that somebody can be a master at. And I'm not saying it's like the right thing to choose, but I do have to agree that when somebody has control and can not react and be reactive to their emotions, but just observe them, then that makes a whole lot of other things very easy in life. And it's like, it creates, like he was describing, this positive aura, this bubble around you, right? This, I think it was like the other book we covered, like the personal magnetism thing, right? It's like, there's this theoretical thing around you that you are part of that exists because you are so present in the moment all the time, that his words were, negativity cannot penetrate it, and if it does not survive in it. And so I don't know if you guys have been around Will in person a whole lot, but, like, he's a pretty positive guy. And it's like, you put all these things together and it makes sense that, like, wow, when you live so often in the moment, and, like, guys, that's why I recommend the cold showering thing. I'm not saying take every shower as a cold shower. We don't want to disincentivize showering, but, like, maybe a little bit at the end, or a little bit at the beginning, or a little bit midway through, or whatever you want to do. Like, literally, when ice water is hitting your body, there's nothing else you could think about except the fact that you're alive and that you're feeling a lot of nerves. So get those 10,000 hours in, guys. Like, get that experience in, and you're going to have that, eventually you're going to grow that positive bubble that, like, when some haters are commenting on your stuff on YouTube and you worked really hard, you did a good job, and they say something mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's funny. They just gave me energy. That's cool. I like that. That's like, you just have this positive energy that comes with you, and it's going to be very magnetic. Lots of people are going to like it. So like, that's my takeaway is like, man, guys, go out there, take some action, and like find something that makes you present in the moment very, very effectively, and like run with
I
that.
like it.
That's what I would have to say.
Sam, I think you actually highlighted one of the first iterations of the author trying to describe the being in the moment, which was the idea of like the flow state. I think in the book he talks about the idea of like a race car driver, but with your relation to someone like Will, who does a lot of tower climbing, a lot of like high stress scenarios where it's more of instinct based on training as opposed to actually thinking it through. It's those high pressure situations, or again, the flow state, where you get that weird feeling where it's like time does not exist. There's only the moment and the current thing in front of you, and you're not thinking about doing stuff. You're kind of just reacting based on like all that you have built yourself up to be at this point, and that you are is interacting with what you're doing, which is that you're not thinking about the upcoming turn. You're not thinking about the dangers. You're just thinking about where you are right now and how to just be in that moment. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I almost want to agree and disagree at the same time. I don't think we've touched on flow yet on this book club, but it is very in line. That book is very paralleled with this one in the like basically in the analysis of experiencing the present moment and how positive it can be. And basically the whole point of flow is just like, hey, if you live in the moment every day and you increase the number of activities you do during the day and the variety of ways that you can live in the moment, you will have a good life. You'll be happy. You'll be content. You'll be all these like wonderful things, you know.
For sure. We haven't covered the flow book on book club yet, but we've definitely talked about the ideas before. And it's that middle point between challenge and boredom. But I think the author would disagree with us trying to define the being in the moment as a difference between boredom and challenge. It's almost something entirely separate, but the feeling I think is very similar.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not saying, no one has to go do the cold showers. Like there's a bunch of ways. I think it's more broad to say that like, if you find ways where you can enter the flow state, that's probably very effective.
For sure. Tell you what, let's keep passing the topic around, which is what are the parts that really resonated with you or made the most sense? Farmer Jay, what you got, brother?
No, I was just going to say that I can only afford anything but cold showers. Can't afford no hot showers.
You get the shower temperature that you get?
Yeah.
No modulation?
No, I was kind of going off the topic here that you guys are talking about, that the importance of living in the now. And like sometimes what's going to happen next week, it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? Like it doesn't, because like right now, it's right now. And what's going to happen next week, you can deal with that next week. But what about today? Like, what are you going to do about your situation today? Like, we should stop worrying about our situation that hasn't arrived yet and actually deal with the situation that we have now. Like, are we going to enjoy ourselves now? Are we going to get to work now? Are we going to do something productive now for our future instead of worrying about what's going to happen in the future? Like that doesn't, like, it matters, but right now it really doesn't. Like, what are we going to do now? Like, and I think that's what I took most from this book is like, should we really, like, we should take into account what our decisions now affect our future. But what we should really be looking at is what can we do at the current moment to enjoy the current situation we're in? Like, there isn't yeah, it's important to look into the future, but like, you're here now. Like for all you know, like, you're not going to be here next week. You might not be in life, and that would be unfortunate, right? Like, we all want a nice, fruitful life till we're old, but like, we might not make it. Like, there might be some jackass that fucking T-bones us and we die, right? So like, what are we going to do now to live in the current to enjoy ourselves and spend time with the people that we love and want to spend time with? Like, it's about right now. And yeah, we should make plans for the future, but we shouldn't discount the now.
Yeah, do you mind if I kind of hop in here and give kind of
I
two examples
don't
as to
mind.
kind of what you've been
Want to hear
talking
what you
about
have to
there,
say.
Farmer? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What
like
was
I said, I don't mind. I actually would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so there's two examples here of kind of like what I think the book is kind of talking about, which is like practical use of the tools that is the memories of the past and or the speculation of the future, right? You are only technically living in the current moment. You are not living anywhere else because you are only here now. If you think about it, a movie is nothing more than a single picture stuck in time, and then there's another one, and it quickly moves through time. That's what we're doing, right? So now if you're thinking about that, you're only living here. So why the way that the book is talking is like, why would you ever want to be like thinking about the future if you're not actually there? Just live in the present now and you're actually living, right? Okay, so what about this then? Now, if I'm obviously we need to think about like, hey, do I have enough money for next month's rent, right? Okay, well, you have to be in the future there. You have to think into the future. Your being has to speculate in the future for that. So you think, okay, I'm going to get however many dollars saved for that rent. Okay, there you go. You have been in the future. Now you can go back to living in the present. Here's what people do, though. People will sit there and think, oh, do I have enough money? How am I going to get that money? And then they continue to loop trying to get that rent money.
Yeah,
You're
you stay
wasting
stuck in
your
that
life
path.
energy. Yeah, you're wasting your life energy trying to figure this out, living in the future, when instead you should be like, okay, I'm going to go get it done, move on, right?
You know,
So
go enjoy
that's
yourself today. Go enjoy yourself with your significant other, your children today. Like like you said, it's important to think about the future, but that should just be a very small portion of your life. Like you should think ahead, but you should live in the now. Like enjoy yourself with the people you love. Like enjoy yourself. Like we have a finite time on this earth. Like we're not like we're all gonna die. Like that's not a secret, right? Like you're saying, Nate, like we should always think about the future, but like that doesn't negate the fact that today is today, and we should enjoy our loved ones and the people that we like. Like we should enjoy ourselves with them and not think too much about it.
Exactly. And that's example number one. That's living in the present, right? Now, when is it acceptable to like try and live in the future, right? Let's go ahead and give my own job a little bit of an example here, right? I'm so used to doing my job, and 90% of every single house I'm ever going to go to, it's the same monotonous thing, right? And so I can, because I am subconsciously just kind of doing it, I can now plug myself into thinking about the future and planning for the future, right? What it is, don't really know. Maybe it's a show like today, but I'm able to plan for the future. And I can make, and so this is how, as a human being, you can be more efficient, because when you do get into those moments where you actually don't need to be in the present, like me at my job, usually, right? At that particular time, I can start being in the future, thinking. There you go, right? But as soon as I get home, I need to get out of that future thinking. I need to get myself out of there, come back to the present, and be with my family, be with my child, right? Be with you guys here tonight. All of you in the fucking chat, like and subscribe, guys. Let's fucking go.
Let them know. Let them know.
For sure.
That's
Tell you what,
interesting, Nate. I've got a disagreement to make there.
Do it.
Yeah, let's have some back and forth here. So, what comes to mind when you say that is, and maybe I'm just misinterpreting the words, but it sounds like you're entering a flow state, like you're able to accomplish your job because you're so good at it. You don't have to think about it. But now the mental energy that could have been spent improving the process of what you're doing, which I would argue is like good long-term solution. no matter what the case. Even if you end up like, for some reason you're working for a shithead and like your extra energy investment in his process
That is
is not
a
helping
that's
you
a
directly.
technical definition, by the way.
Yes, correct. So like what I'm curious about is how do you balance the I'm just confused about how you can maximize the flow state and be in the flow state when thinking about something else. And let me give you an example of what I'm speaking about. When I'm building something, when I'm plugging in wires or whatever, not that I don't do that, Farmer Jay. I don't plug in wires because I'm not a licensed electrician.
You heard it here.
I have my apprentices do that. I just watch.
There you go. So whenever I'm doing that, when I hit the flow state part, I'm not thinking about anything other than what I'm doing. And so I don't understand. Do you know, does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yes. Okay. And the one word that you missed was 90% of the time.
Okay.
So if you were to say like that was an efficiency thing, there's 90% of the time that this is the same thing every single time. And so that's when I'm able to pull myself out, focus only on the future, right? But if I have a trainee with me, right, I'm not going to be able to do this flow state and then go live in the future. I have to be present, focused on that trainee, teach him how to do the job, at least fairly close to as good as I can do.
Teach him how to enter the flow state.
Exactly.
You do?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Other times there are things I come across that literally wake me up that I have to stop whatever podcast or book I'm listening to and go, what is this thing that I just ran into right now? And there's like a problem with the house or like a new insect infestation issue or like rats have been chewing through shit. And I go, whoa, wait a minute here. Okay. And then that's when I get pulled out and now I'm in the present again. So it's kind of like a back and forth, you know. I will admit though, the problem that I've had, it's kind of like weights, right? So let's pretend you have, you know, the present and then you got the future and the past, right? I think that people are either too weighted in future. I think most people are weighted too much in the past because they think too much about it. And I think the present rarely gets the most weight. I think it should be a triangle like this, where you use the tools of the past and the future, past being like what not to do in the future or in your present state, whereas future is like avoiding problems, right? But they should be less weighted and you should be more so in the present. I have been spending way too much time in the future, unfortunately, because I'll come home and I'll still be thinking about things to do rather than being here with projects, with my family and all that. Admittedly a problem.
If I'm not misquoting the author on this one, the reason that he talks about the future is not the place to dwell on or think about is because if you are thinking about the future or anticipating to the future, it means one of two things. One was that you're either just waiting for the future to happen upon you, which ironically will never happen because there's only now, there's never anything else, according to him. And the other is that if you're dwelling on the future and thinking about it, it means that you are dissatisfied with the present, in which case you are actively trying to not be in the present because you don't like or don't want what's happening currently.
That was the word that I couldn't think of before Zenith. Thank you. So my question for you now clarified, thank you to Zenith, Nate, is if you are dissatisfied with the present, because bro, I totally get it. Like when you do a monotonous thing, like it's really hard to be present and satisfied necessarily when you're like can't enter the flow state. Like, I mean, bro, climbing a ladder up a tower, there you go. That's situation A. I'm going to be listening to something, driving a car. Like, so is there dissatisfaction in the monotonous work of doing pest control?
When you get to the point where I'm at, there is no more challenge. Yes.
Gotcha. So okay. Well, in this particular case, it sounds like you have a lot of leverage you could be applying, I suppose, and the role that you are filling is a lower leverage role for the current time being.
So while we're on this, I want to throw out this question. This is something that I was trying to wrestle with during the book, talking about the idea of like where you are currently and then also thinking about the future. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about on Book Club, and honestly the way that we run this channel, is that we're always looking to self-improve. what this book kind of talks about is the idea that if you're thinking about the future, that it means you're dissatisfied with the present, therefore you cannot be in the present. But that seems antithetical to the entire idea of self-improvement, which is that the base point before this book is that we're always trying to better ourselves day in and day out. It's the idea of stacking small wins, whether it's financially, personally, spiritually, within your family, within your community, whatever it is. I think there's been a very consistent theme across our channel, which is that we're trying to stack small wins. But then we run into this object that is this book talking about being in the moment. It's the idea that I think the book would argue that self-improvement is almost an idea of being dissatisfied with being in the moment. But this also comes back to the idea that I think I mentioned previously, which is, are you dissatisfied with your life or are you dissatisfied with your life situation? Because the idea is that being in the moment means that you are being one with your life, but not necessarily the life situation. And for me, this is one of those concepts that I was trying to really wrestle my head around, which is that you have your body, mind, spirit. You're trying to, or soul, trying to operate being in the moment within the soul. But the idea of self-improvement lies within the mind and the body, which is you want to improve yourself physically or you want to improve yourself mentally. But the book is really trying to convince you that your life is kind of, it exists outside of time and it exists outside of those other two concepts. So is self-improvement something that can happen within being in the moment? Or is self-improvement something that is entirely stuck to your mind and your body?
I have a thought on that.
Go for it.
So the way I see it is, like, even if we are dissatisfied with the current situation we're in, like, we live in the now, right? So we should definitely spend some time thinking about how we can improve our current situation, but we shouldn't be stuck in that moment. Like, I think too many of us spend time just thinking about what we can do instead of actually taking actions in now. I think that's what it gets at. At least that's what I got from it personally, from my experience, which might differ from other people's experience because we all have different life experiences, right? We all have live differently, right? And that's no knock about anybody, you know, but I think a lot of us, like, we spend too much time thinking about how we can change things instead of actually taking action to change things. Like, we spend too much time thinking about what I should do instead of doing it. Like, it's fine. We should plan and think about what I should do, but let's not take too much time in that. Let's actually, in the now, let's actually take those thoughts and actually take action on them. Like,
Farmer, I think you have a really good point here. So I think, so the question that I was trying to wrestle with is that, is self-improvement thinking about the future, which the book would argue is that thinking about the future is dissatisfaction with the self. But what you're saying is that, yeah, thinking about the future might prompt what you're doing right now, but in order to be in the moment, self-improvement is not a process that you do to fix the current thing. It's more of self-improvement is a natural and consistent function of that soul or the being or the consciousness, which is that consciously, to be in the moment, it means to always be aimed at self-improvement. So it's less of a dissatisfaction with the moment, but it's more of a, you find being in the moment by just being on this slightly upwards trajectory.
That's an interesting way to put it there, Zenith.
We should always aim to self-improvement, right?
I was going to give you an example, and Z, we can move on it. Like, if you think.
No. I think this is totally fine.
Okay, so I'm going to give you this example then, and I want you to tell me if this correlates with what you just said. Okay, because this is the way that I kind of thought about it. So, you know, for me, I'm not happy with the amount of strength I have, nor the look of my body. So therefore, I want to get at least close to, you know, what Jay's like, right?
Isn't that all of us, brother? We all want to look like Jay,
right? So, what I said was,
he's a skinny one, I don't want to look like that fool.
I don't think you've seen Jay without a shirt on, brother.
That's fucking funny,
don't
bro.
care. He's a skinny fool. I don't want to look like that guy.
All right, keep going, Nate. Keep going.
But so what I said is, I'm going to start by just doing a certain number of push-ups every single day without fail until I start getting some results off of that. Now that right there is thinking in the future, right? Thinking into the future, I'm going to reach this. But in the present, my spirit can live in that moment where I'm like, okay, I did my push-ups for the day. I am satisfied with myself because I did a baby step. I did a step towards that. And you can be satisfied and happy with that, you know? So when people sit there and get all upset, right, and depressed because, oh, I'm not freaking Andrew Tate, it's like, well, okay, yeah, but you are working your way on that upwards trajectory, right? One step at a fucking time. Is that kind of close to what you said?
I think
so.
I think the book kind of goes over that of like comparing ourselves to others. Like, I don't think we should do that. We should just try to make the best situation that we have for ourselves. Like, yeah, Agent J, yeah, you know, he's like, yeah, I've seen what he looks like, whatever, you know, and he's in excellent shape, whatever, right? But like, should we like sit here and like think bad about ourselves because he's in a situation that we're not? No, we should try to improve ourselves, but we shouldn't. I think it talks about comparing ourselves to others, right? Like, we should compare ourselves to ourselves. Like, where am I today compared to where I was last year? Did I improve? Did I gain? Was I able to improve my life? Was I able to improve myself? Like, that's what we should compare ourselves. Where am I today compared to where I was last year at this point?
I hear you. Tell you what, let's get some final thoughts on this idea of the future robbing the present, but also how does that compare against self-improvement? So anybody got some final thoughts on it?
I have no idea how to overcome that when I'm driving, right?
For sure.
Like,
I think
that an audiobook.
Definitely. In my opinion, I think that this kind of a question is a bit of a catch-22 when you think about it from the structure that is the thinking of the book. Because the book does try to impart the idea that if you're focused on the future, you're robbing the present. But at the same time, it's this like weird thing where it almost feels like if you are just being in the moment, then it means that you can never grow. Because you're just here and you're never thinking about something future. You're just thinking about now. So that's why I tried to bridge the gap earlier when I said that if being in the now also means that you are always self-improving, then that's the way to square that circle, so to speak, which is that being in the now is always being slightly on the up and up, not focusing on what you are not or what you wish to be, but being in the now is the flow state of building skills or building experience or building your body or something. I'm probably like the author might disagree with me on this one because I bet he would come back and hit me with something like being in the moment means not being in your body or trying to improve your body or your mind. It's being outside of it. So I don't know. Like, this is, I'll throw this point out here now before we get into our disagreements later, which is that I, as a person, am very practical and I want practical, tangible ways to either achieve results or work towards something. And it seems like this book isn't entirely just punching me in my face saying, you fool, you idiot, why would you think that? So that's me.
Got a question
All right.
for you, Zenith. Which one
Hit
is
me.
which one is the now? Because now I'm confused. If I'm driving a car, is my flow state the car, or is it the audiobook? Like, maybe I shouldn't be super focused on my audiobook when I'm driving a car, but like,
I mean, I could be a dick and hit you with the it's both and neither, but I think the answer is, in accordance with the book, is that it's actually neither, which is that it's being in the moment is, it's almost described, in my opinion, as this like moment of self-realization. I kind of give flack to it because one of the quotes that I pulled out previously was that like a person who just discovered what being in the now or being in the moment feels like is they originally saw a tree, but now that they're in the moment, they look out at that tree and it suddenly has gained color vibrancy and it's now 3-dimensional instead of 2-dimensional. And my brain is screaming out, you idiot, you're looking at the same tree, you're just hypnotizing yourself. But the idea is that being in the moment it's separate from time. It is that it's the life versus life situation thing. It's not looking at it as you are in the car, but it's looking at it as you are in the moment and you're being and you are conscious about everything going on. So you're not just conscious about driving your car, you're conscious about the conversation with us, and you're conscious about our level of consciousness interacting with your level of consciousness. Because if we're just talking about how this book made us feel, then that means we're operating in the unconscious. But if we're trying to understand it and trying to talk about it, it's that level of consciousness in which it gets to the idea of where you get to the idea where it's, I'm not going to say that it's love from us. I mean, it could be brotherly love. The book never really talks about that concept, but I think it's also important. But it's the idea that you're operating on this level of consciousness and you can meet each other at that level of consciousness. That probably was a lot of words that said absolutely nothing, but I'm trying to
conceptualize.
I'm trying to grab nothing.
How about we use the example of sports? If you are currently playing a match in a sports game, you are in the moment and you are reacting, right? You are in the present. You're not sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder what the next quarter is going to be like, you know? So when there are things like, say, if you're driving, right, Sam? If you're driving,
Correct.
You're just kind of doing that unconsciously, whereas your consciousness is focusing on learning what is in this audiobook.
The soothing sound of your voice.
Listen to the sound of my voice. Maybe the best way to describe it would be focused consciousness, and this is where we hit words again, but focused consciousness versus unconsciousness. We breathe unconsciously, right? So that has nothing to do with being in the moment. That's your body just doing a thing. Yes. So if you're focusing, kind of like in a sport, right? You're focusing on, whatever balls are flying around your face,
Sorry.
Like sometimes you're just in the moment when balls are flying around your face,
Oh my God.
Misogyny.
But the point remains, right?
Thank you, Farmer.
But yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now that if you're playing soccer and balls are flying in your face, you're not thinking about doing the laundry 2 days from now,
Soccer, never heard of it.
Sorry, baseball from where you're from.
Football.
Whoa. Fair. All right. Tell you what, I'm going to try to reel us back in a little bit. So I think we beat up the initial question that I pitched out there before we got distracted by the balls in the face concept. So I want to kick it over to our excellent co-host, Mrs. McGettit. What was your favorite part of the book, or kind of the part of the book that really clicked and made the most sense?
I'm not gonna lie, I can't really remember what I wanted to say. There's been a lot of conversation since I started thinking about these things, and it's just kind of been a lot of back and forth. So
it's been a journey, I'll say that much.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want, I'll interject here. I think I got a topic that we can kick around for a bit. So I mentioned it when I was doing my chapter summary, but chapter 4 really talks about the idea for me that resonated the most, which was that by being in the level of conscious, you're being outside of your mind, body, and the emotions within. And that by doing so, what you're doing is that you're stepping away from your emotions, which is that you're going to feel emotions about things. But if you can detach yourself from them and not be ruled by them, that's going to be the best way to live your life. Which is that, for the example of, especially in the modern day and age, which we are now, which is that you're inundated with news and media 24/7, especially in the United States, where we have a lot of politics going on, especially right now because it's an election year. There are tons of stimulus just constantly pounding you, telling you to feel certain ways, think certain things. You're either winning, you're losing, you're fearful, you're in control, you're in power, whatever. But the point is that all of this is it's currents inside of the world that can grab you and pull you in certain directions, especially if you are driven by emotions. But by being in the level of consciousness, what you do is you take that step back. You take that third-party perspective. You get that third view camera to look at yourself amongst everything, and then also kind of like feel everything at the same time. But by feeling everything and being in the moment, you're not being driven by what's being fed to you, or you're not being controlled by your emotions. You're not seeing red. You're not being depressed. You understand your emotions, and your inner self absolutely feels it. But by having that level of consciousness, it is that detachment. It's the the author would probably have cross words with me about this, but it's the idea of control. It is controlling your emotions by letting them go. It's the detachment. It's falling back into the sense of self that you feel emotions. You absolutely do. But you, on the conscious level, are able to make decisions and think outside of those unconscious emotions, which is that you will feel things like I'm aging rapidly, my ankle hurts, my back hurts, but at the same time, I am more than just those feelings, which is that I can look at all of that and then still be amongst myself in the moment, and that, in my opinion, was the idea where it's like, I feel clarity when I'm able to detach myself from things. Just like last week, I think Will was the one that told the story about the guy who was like, oh no, who was like, hooray, I have a son. And then the person was like, we'll see. And then another person was like, oh no, your son got injured. This is terrible. And the guy was like, we'll see. And then the army came around to try to draft all the able-bodied men, but they couldn't draft his son because his son was injured. And they're like, oh, that's fantastic. And he's like, we'll see. It's the idea that the roller coaster of emotions is down here. But if you can constantly stay above it, you're going to be able to make the best moves. You're going to be able to make the most of it, and you're going to get the most fulfillment out of your life. I understand I'm imposing myself a little bit on this part, but chapter 4 really for me was the idea that the point of being in the conscious is to be above the feelings. The feelings are good, but the feelings do not rule you.
So Moondog here has a great one, great comment to say about that. I kind of agree with Moondog, or what I'm kind of reading into this is basically the idea of emotions is they are a tool, right? They're a tool just to kind of in its place, right? You don't necessarily always need to detach.
Let's read this out real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So hold that thought. So Moondog says, best way to live life, detached from emotion. Bit of an unconscious overstatement there, Z. It's a great tool in its place, but hardly the optimum / always engage / detach.
Yes. So the way
when you guys are
the
done,
way that
I
I
would
read
love to add
that
to the topic.
Yes, for sure.
So the way that I read that, right, is your emotions is the same type of thing as like a symptom when you get sick. Okay. Now that's got a negative connotation on it. It could be positive or negative. Okay. It doesn't really matter, but you still, it's a symptom of what's really going on with you, right? If you're mad, you detach yourself and go, wait, why am I mad? What is happening here? If you start getting anxiety after someone has a conversation with you, what triggered that? There's something wrong there with that. And then you can consciously think, okay, instead of reacting very angrily, like maybe having to defend yourself against this person who was talking to you, and maybe they were talking to you in a positive light, but you're taking it very negatively. You can be like, wait a minute, why am I taking it negatively? And try and figure out what's really going on here. Maybe it's something that you need to fix about yourself, right? Maybe it's something that you can improve with yourself. And that's when you can later on kind of hold that, right? Go back, and then you can go back through, and this is where we would use the tool of history, right? The past. You go back through your past and say, wait a minute, what happened in my past that made me think this is such a bad thing here in the present, right? And then you can, using those lessons from the past, then move your present self into a better position from then on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Farmer, what you got?
I'll add on to that. I think Moondog said that what was his comment that
The best way to live life, detach from emotion.
Yeah, detach from emotion.
Bit of skepticism on that.
And then Agent J brought up that, where's that comment at?
Jay says emotions are great. It's one of the great. Go for it.
Yeah, it's one of the great things. But like you brought up, it's election season, right? And sometimes
mass panic and hysteria season.
Yeah, people want to make us feel like a certain way, right? Like depending on who you are, they want to use your emotions against you, and they want to project certain fear on you depending on who you are. And sometimes, like, it doesn't matter how you feel about things. What you need to take into account is what's best for you, your family, and the values you believe in, regardless of how personal you feel about a certain individual. Like, fuck that bullshit. because that does nothing for your wallet. That does nothing for what you believe in. Like, I don't care about any of that. The only care like you said, it's election season. I don't care about how a certain person feels or how he makes me feel. I care about what that person's policy, how it affects me and the people I care about. I like we're all humans, right? We all have emotions and we all feel certain things about it. And if you don't have emotions, like, there's something wrong with you. Like, seriously. Like, but we shouldn't let emotions dictate our decisions. We should be emotional. We're humans. Like, we should feel certain things. But at the end of the day, like, we should step away. Like, I think it tells the book, right? Talks about stepping away from what your brain tells you and understanding what reality is. Now, if I choose to do this thing's going to happen. This person believes in a certain thing. I don't care how I feel about them. Is this beneficial for me and the people I care about? Like, detach yourself from the emotions. And I think that, go ahead.
I think you're touching on something, which is an idea that we've probably talked about a lot before, which is stoicism. And I think you summarized it pretty good there, which is the general tenets of stoicism is that you care about the things you can control, but the things that you can't control, you just let go and accept them as how they are. They might be good, they might be bad, but at the end of the day, if you can't control it, there's no reason to care about it. So how do you think
you can't change the things you can't change?
Exactly. So when you're reading this book, do you think that this book is more like agrees with the idea of stoicism, or do you think it kind of raises like problems with stoicism?
I think it's more
stoicism. Go for it.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say stoicism still cares about things, but the book is almost trying to tell. The way that I read it, or that I got from it, was that the book is trying to tell me to engage above the level of emotion, and stoicism is just trying to control what gets into the level of emotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that at a certain level, they're kind of the same thing or very similar, or at least connected. At least there's some connection between them, right? Like, we shouldn't care, but the reality is, as a human being, we do care about these things. Like, if you're not a psychopath, as a human being, you have emotions. It doesn't matter whether you show them or not. We're emotional creatures, right? Like, there's no denying about that. Like, as humans, we're all emotional. We all have had heartbreak. We all have lost people we love, whether it's through death or relationships. Like we feel things, right? But
yeah,
I think stoicism teaches that we should be able to control that, right? Like, it doesn't, and I think the book gets at that we should actually, it doesn't matter how we feel about things, that we should just behave in a certain way that will give us the best results for the things we want.
That's true, but to even hit back a little on that idea is that I think the book talks about the ideas of emotions as a thing between the mind and the body. But what the book brings up is
quickly let me answer that. No, I'm gonna let you finish, but I just like to point out that the contrast of how, when we read things, how different individuals with different experiences see things, and doesn't mean we're wrong. And I love having these conversations with disagreements, right? Because we get to look inside other people's minds and see how they think, and then be like, oh, I never saw it that way, but now that I think about it, let me look at it from your perspective. But I'll let you finish your thought. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you hit me with the music video awards, Kanye, like Taylor Swift. I'm gonna let you finish, but Rihanna had the best album of the year.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to get it out before I lost the train of thought.
No, I completely understand. I think you got it out very well. So the thing that I was going to say is that it might be reading too much into the woo-woo stuff, as Nate put it very well earlier, but it's that when I was saying that the book describes as emotions between the mind and the body, which is, it's almost like if you're feeling emotions, or if you're like trying to like really feel the emotions, you're being stuck in the unconscious world, but being in the moment requires you to be in the conscious world, or that detached view. So Jay had that good comment earlier that we talked about, which is that the beauty of being human is that you do get to experience these emotions and you feel them. But it almost, in my interpretation of the book, it's saying that that's cool, but if you want to be conscious, you still have to get above it. So it's like you can't even really feel good and bad. It's detachment.
Yeah, I've always felt that way. Like, is consciousness really your brain? Like your brain is your mechanism of your thought while you're in this physical earth. But is it really you? Like say, do you believe in life after death? Your brain's not going with you, it's your consciousness. Like it I always found it as a trip when you start getting into, because we can have this conversation for hours and hours, right?
Absolutely. This could be a
Like
7
what
hour
is
stream
consciousness? What is
easily.
thought? What do you, and I think, like, since we're talking about past books, like Richard Hart, he believes about, extending life, and some of it is exchanging your consciousness unto other bodies. So is your consciousness your brain? Then if that's the case, then it cannot be.
So
It cannot.
I'm going to give
Your
my
consciousness is like your being, which is like different than your brain of your thought pattern. But like, what do I know?
for sure. I'll give the white pill and the black pill answer on this one, and then I'll pass it around to the rest of the team, which is that if you ask the question, are you more than what your brain is capable of? Are you that consciousness beyond it? The white pill answer is yes, you are more than that. You are the consciousness. You are this soul that exists above the body and the mind, which is that the mind might be a limiter or some sort of like resistor per se, which is going to limit how much like physical power you can output through your brain electronically, but your soul has the ability to transcend that. The black pill version of that is that it's all delusion, which is that your brain is a limiter and you think that you can exist outside of that limiter and above it, but the reality is that you're not creating that output. So it's like you think you're bigger than this, but it's really just delusion, and you have to accept what you are. So it's, again, I think it's conflicting ideas. It's, are you able to escape the physical mortal plane that is your body and your mind and the physical limitations of it and actually achieve that like higher level of consciousness, or are you stuck with the hardware you got? I don't know. Let's pass it over. Nate, I know you got thoughts. I can see it on your face.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try and make this about as fast as I can. So the idea of the spirit is nothing more than energy. Now, the entire universe is made up of energy, and energy, like when you look at any kind of matter and it's destroyed, it all ultimately just goes back to energy, which that energy ultimately forms back into some kind of matter. But energy is always flowing, right? Energy is always going through some sort of manner, whether it's like any kind of harmonic tones or it's some sort of electrical energy, right? So with that being said, if you have like electrons, energy actually flowing through your brain, literally to form thoughts, that itself may actually be what you may call the spirit, right? So with that being the spirit, then as soon as you die and that energy dissipates, where does that energy dissipate to? Well, it's going to dissipate into quite literally the ether of the universe. Right. And so with that being said, technically speaking, you can never actually die, because the ether of the universe literally becomes nothing more than what would be considered the breath or the breathing out of the Big Bang, which then it would breathe back in, hit to that same exact point until it explodes once again. However, that is everything having to do with energy. And so therefore, if you were able to get yourself into the ether energy of the universe, technically speaking, you are going to be living forever. In multiple universes over and over and over again, and your energy will be continually recycled. I guess you could call it reincarnation into something.
I hear you. Okay.
I got a question for Nate here.
Yeah.
So, if from like a scientific perspective, if our energy like is never created or destroyed, and then it gets expunged or whatever from our bodies, does it also then mix with everybody else's? And then like
So that's the hard one. So if you're thinking about computers, right? So the way that computers work is that it's data, it's pieces of data information in the actual electrons themselves, right? That are imprinted onto something physical. Now, if it's actually imprinted into the electricity, or not electricity, but like the energy itself, then everything that we're ever taking in here does become imprinted on that energy in the universe itself. So yes, there's definitely an idea that comes to mind of like that data flow could be an accumulation of every single human being and creature's energy, what do you call that, energy data. I'll call it that. That's the best word for it. Energy data, in which technically speaking, if we ever learn how to kind of like harness that, and they call it the ether because it's kind of like it's the unending energy. It's literally like almost like black matter or dark matter, sorry, where it's like it's out there and we know it exists and there's evidence of it, but we can't get to it, right? So, but the ether is out there, and that seems to be where that energy tends to flow to. And so, like, if we could extract that, we'd probably get lots of different data points of memories and things like that that we would not even comprehend, because it's just stuff that we didn't even know existed.
For sure. Gentlemen, I'm going to step in real quick because I think that we're driving towards a very large and important topic of the book, which is the idea of life and death, or the ending, so to speak. And by the way, Sam, we have a good comment from Alan Fizame, who may answer this question for you. He says, Sam, pulse chain solves this. No mixing of energy. The answer is pulse chain.
I was going to say, it sounds like Vitalik figured this out with the whole Ethereum thing.
Maybe, but it's more of that meme of the Hexicans always being like, yeah, Hex solved this. Hex never went down. And then people will be like, yes, Hex is also not a blockchain. And then everyone just comes back with still 100% uptime. Doesn't matter. Point irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
100% uptime, but
thank you, Alan.
not 100% up on the charts.
Hey, wow, whoa. That's neither here nor there. However, I will say we'll talk about that more on Sunday potentially. Pulse Chain is doing some interesting moves right now, but let's keep in mind real quick the idea of life and death and what the consciousness, how consciousness moves in and out of that. While you guys keep that in mind, I'm going to run through the rest of the chats because the chat is absolutely on fire tonight. Shout out to Crypto Chronic and Moondog. You guys are absolutely bringing it, and we love each and every comment. We can't pull all of them up, but at the same time, these are all points, and Moondog is even referencing Jordan Peterson here. And when I was thinking of this book, I had a little Dr. Jordan Peterson in my mind as well, trying to balance it off. So with that being said, Mrs. Producer, if you do not mind, we have the first comment from Strip Club Music Enjoyer himself, Hexagon Lost in Asia. He says, I'll be the number one Hexagon. You can, but I think you're going to have to fight some other people for that contention. I know we did a influencer boxing thing before, but we might have to do karate combat, Hex Karate Combat 2, and we'll enter you in that. You and RG3 can fight for that title.
Hex Meetup at Vegas with boxing between the Hexicans to determine the number one Hexican.
I like it. Look, I'm all for doing the live events, whatever it turns out to be. So we'll see if we can get something going. Up next, we got one of the people I mentioned previously, Moondog. He says, love and light. Love y'all. Love y'all too, brother. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for all the good insightful content. Like, you and Crypto Chronic are absolutely running the comment section right now, the chat. And if anybody else wants to get in there, like I know I mentioned to Tam earlier, if she wants to give us her idea of what being in the moment or that consciousness is, I would love to hear it. I want to hear that from everybody so that we can all compare notes and see if we all got the same thing out of this book. Alrighty, up next, we got Chicago Brew. He says, feelings, be with the feelings. I don't know why, but my brain immediately went to the song by The Offspring, Feelings. Does anybody else? It's just like, feelings, wow, feelings, why have I met you?
Alrighty, I guess we're gonna start a concert by Z over here.
I didn't know how else to do that. I apologize.
Don't apologize. It's beautiful and amazing. You should do it more often. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
I will say this: back in my Coast Guard days when we were on the ship, and it was like 2 a.m. and we're on watch. One of the guys that I was with, sometimes he would just like randomly break into that song, and then everyone in the control booth is just like rocking out and just shouting to it. And then the watchstander who's out on his round comes back and just sees like 4 idiots in main control just like spazzing out. That's hilarious to me. I like that.
Oh no, that sounds like, as a construction worker that like does the shit you do on construction sites. like that's lovely, right? Just fucking like you're there, you might as well enjoy yourself, right?
Exactly.
Like you're there, you might as well just have fun.
True. Very true. All right. Speaking of
I demand full-blown flash mobs at all times.
We'll work on it. I don't know if we can get it done right now, but we'll work on it. All right. Speaking of having fun, we have someone else who knows how to have fun. And that is Crypto Chronic. He said, "What's good, DGen fam? Good to see y'all killing it again. Good to see you killing it with us, dude. You're rocking it. You and Moondog, keep going after it. This is good conversation right here." All right,
I appreciate him. He's always here, giving us love.
Dude, he is. He's one of the dedicated few.
Yeah, he's on like on all the shows.
True. Speaking of, we got Sticker Guy Win coming up. He says, GME. Absolutely, son. I don't remember what that acronym means right now, but please.
GameStop.
It's
GameStop. Oh, right. I literally covered that earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, he was
That's a
asking
stock
why
symbol.
we weren't talking about it. It's like, it's book club, man. It's book club.
We're not talking about it because we're trying to wrap our peanut brains around big brain ideas right now.
And because this is DJ and Round Club, like GME is not nearly retarded for us. You need to go to that extra step.
There's DGen and then there's GameStop. Is that what you're saying?
No, there's DGen, there's GameStop, and then there's us. Like 3 tiers above the retarded.
Okay,
crayon eating people.
Dude, all I'm saying is cherry red, best crayon flavor. Throwing it out there.
I personally like purple.
Dude, it's a good one. Classic
Cerulean over
indigo.
here.
Ooh, cerulean. That's a good one. All right, last but not least, we have one more. We have Alan Fenzame. He says, Sam, Pulse Chain solves this. No mixing of energy. I already covered this chat, but I wanted to bring it up twice because I thought it was funny, and it will bring us back to the original topic that I derailed from, which was the idea of life and death. I think this is going to be an interesting / controversial / big idea from the book. And part of me, the reason that I initially said that I think this book tries to make what are fundamentally religious arguments is that when you are able to engage with the idea of the conscious as opposed to the unconscious, is that you are being in the moment and you are with your soul that has the ability to transcend, as what the book likes to call, practical clock time, and it exists all throughout time just as it is now, as opposed to your life situation, which is a pure reflection of the moment right now. So what do you guys think? What was your interpretation of the book's meaning when it says that like being in the moment transcends life and death?
Like, I have some personal thoughts on that.
Yeah, hit it.
When you told us to think about it before you broke for the chat, right? About after death and stuff. So maybe not necessarily on the question you asked, but more on the topic of that. And it's I think it'd be a tragedy that like after you die, like you don't actually have a conscience and everything you are ceases to exist. Like not your body necessarily, but your consciousness. If your consciousness can't exist outside of your brain and your body, like everything that you are, just I think it's sad that everything, because every individual it's that just that, right? An individual. We're all different in our own ways. And if you were to die, if that ceases to exist, I've always had a problem with that, like I've always wished that that's not reality. Like, but that's my personal thought on that, and not really on the question you asked, but when you asked that before you went through the chats.
So, Farmer, are
Go
you
for it, Sam.
like, isn't it beautiful though? Isn't it beautiful? It's not sad. Because think about it this way: if I knew Farmer was going to be around for another 2,000 years or infinity, I'd probably value him less. Like scarcity, my man.
No, well, that's part of the human experience, right? That we understand that we're here for a certain number of years, right? And once we're gone, we're gone. And we should appreciate the time that we're here and appreciate the little amount of time that we're here. We should appreciate with people that are actually good people, right? And people we enjoy being around with, like this panel. Like I like being here. Like it improves my life. It makes me better. Like it makes me better. I would not spend time researching these books or reading them or actually paying for them if it were not for this panel. And these are good discussions we have. And like to me, I look forward to this. Like I truly do. Like there's not a lot of things I look forward to, but this is one of them. Like it's a good experience with people I like conversating with. Like I truly do. Like it's a good time I experience here. Like I'll just keep it real. It's good that we get here and we have these discussions, right? Like a lot of the times you're hanging out with people you grew up with and they're retarded as fuck. You can't have decent conversations with people, right? Like, yeah, you guys are laughing because it's true, right? Like you think about some of the people you grew up with and they're just dumbasses, right? And you can't actually have meaningful conversations with them. They're just retards. And like I said, like I look forward to this.
I love you too, Farmer.
You hit me on the left field with that one. I'm dying. But I saw that cat, Mrs. Maggette came off mute. What do you got for us, Mrs. Producer?
No, it's just to Sam's point I was going to say, but don't you know that death is an illusion? We're all eternal, so. whatever you're talking about over there, you're wrong, according to the book.
Yeah,
Look,
when Farmer comes back, he's going to be mixed with Zenith and Nate and Mrs. McGettit.
Oh god, I don't want to see the person that is all of us combined in one person. That's
that
got to be
sounds
like the person who has.
terrifying.
Yeah, that is the person that has the worst schizophrenia. Like they just have like 4 different crazy people in their brain just trying to get out at the same time. Ugh. But I will say, man, Farmer, hats off to you. I think you just did the best Will impression that we have without Will being here, which is that I think Will was even the first one to say that like he wouldn't read the books unless we were all reading it together. So, like,
Yeah,
dude, you
like
hit it
why?
right.
Yeah, like why am I gonna lie about it? I wouldn't. Like I make an effort to read the books.
Hell yeah.
Same.
sure.
I'm not a book reader, and the only, Z, hats off to you, bro, because the only reason why I'm reading any of these books is because of you, and because Mrs. McGettit loves this so much, she's actually kind of forcing me to read the ones even I don't want to read, like this one today, which actually ended up being really awesome for me. So I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty cool.
Dude, I'm in the same camp as you. It's building that outside pressure to get the stuff done. And I even texted some of my or 2 of my friends, or I talked to one of them, was my roommate. The other was a good friend from a long time ago. She and I have had many conversations in the past about like what is truth, and like is there a truth or is there multiple, stuff like that. Like the 1 a.m. conversations that go on for way too long and stuff like that. And it's like normally I would put this book down. I'd write it off and say it's nonsense or whatever, but I got to power through because I want to talk about it with all you guys. And at the end of the day, I'm very glad I did, because like I mentioned previously, when I got to all the stuff this morning, I was very happy with the second half of the book, and the second half of the book made a lot more sense to me, and I think I actually got something out of it. It's not all woo-woo magic nonsense, but it's understanding the book about how it talks on a different axis and wants to try to approach things differently than like a conventional straightforward method. So yeah, book club is great for that. Y'all are the best. I hope we're providing good content. I know Tam Tam says that she loves book club Fridays, and I'm glad that she does, because all of us are over here trying to rack our heads against pieces of paper and make sense of it. So at least it's entertaining for somebody. Oh, alrighty. So I'll tell you what. I'll throw my 2 cents in here. The original question was, what do you think about the book's concept of life and death? I pulled up my quote that I got from chapter 3, which is that life and death is not a problem, but an example of now. It's this idea that everything kind of happens all at once, singularly, and that it again goes back to the idea of your life versus your life situation. And that your life is kind of going to play out, and if you exist within your life, you're going to enjoy it a lot more than if you're trying to constantly change your fate and focus on the past and the future. So I'll throw it out there. I'm personally a Christian, and I do believe that there is something beyond this life, and that there is a force greater than just pure natural selection and creation, which is that there is a logos or an internal logic to the universe. Whether you believe it's the floating man in the chair in the sky, like Monty Python style, or you think it's just like some undercurrent that kind of circulates and fits everything together outside of human conception. It's the idea that if you are of this world, you will be within this world and stuck to it. But if you are able to be outside of this world, or as this book calls it, you are able to be conscious or exist outside of your body and your mind, you're going to be able to find the ability to transcend the singular moment that your body exists in. Because as humans, I think it's very easy to... you are the culmination of everything that you are. What I mean by that is like, yes, I am my physical body, my mind, and I feel everything that I feel, whether it's emotions or whether it's like physical pain or discomfort, which is like, I have to eat, otherwise I'm going to wither away and die. The point is that you have to contend with all those things, but you have to also be able to transcend those things. And that's where you get to the higher state of being. And in the grand scheme of things, humans are a blip on the radar of history, which is that everything has existed long, long, long before us and will continue to exist long into the future, even if we theoretically hit ourselves with nuclear weapons and the planet is wiped out. I will answer the question that the book premises, which is that if human life is not there to observe it, does time still happen? I'll say, yeah, it does. But the point of human existence is not that you are here and existing in the world. It is that you are here and you have the ability to think and be outside of it. And that is the part which is that religious argument that says that, shoot, I'm going to terribly misquote somebody here, but it's that like humans have a God-shaped hole within them and they try to fill it with anything they can. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's hedonism, sometimes it's other things. But the point is that this has been a question through all of humanity, and if you are able to achieve that level of consciousness, that is where you get to the level of religious thinkers, of a creator, if you believe in such, and that you're going to be able to move within the physical world that is right now to that separate existence of whatever you believe it is. And that's where you get to the idea of an eternity, of eternal damnation, if you also believe in that. And that's where your consciousness is going to exist with the consciousness of everyone else, including the people that came before you and after you. That was a lot of words. Someone please roast me.
Now, like, to me, I agree. Like, I don't believe that your brain is your consciousness. Like, you have to exist out of that. Like, your brain is an asset while you're alive. But I don't believe, like me personally, like you said, you have your beliefs, right? I don't believe that when you die that your consciousness ceases to exist. If that were true, then to me that would be a travesty, right? Like, you're forever gone. There's no trace of you left, because your body is not who you are. It's just what you look like. But that is not the essence of you. That your body is not you. You are you. Your consciousness. We could all look like I could look like Zenith and Zenith could look like me, right? But we're not that person. It doesn't matter what we look like. Is we are individuals and we are who we are based on our experiences and based on our consciousness. Like I agree with you. Like I don't believe. I know something like I don't think Nate has too many religious views on this. I personally do, like you. I grew up in a very Christian household. And I believe in the afterlife and whatever, like I don't express it too much, but like I believe these things exist, and I believe that consciousness is not your mind. Your mind is just a tool that you can use while you're here, but it's not you. It's not who you are. You are more than your brain, in my belief, anyway.
Well, the idea is okay. So I was going to hit you with a question that was a really difficult question, but. I'll go this direction instead. So
one you can ask the question too.
Thank you for sparing me.
I want to go this direction instead. So the idea is like, all right. So heaven or hell, right? Heaven is eternal. Heaven is eternal, like peace and happiness. Hell is eternal suffering, right?
According to who?
So,
no.
According to what the Bible says.
No, that's
multiple times. There are different levels of hell and different levels of heaven, but ultimately, if you kind of look at the overall,
of the Bible.
That's fair, but we can generalize and say just like an Abrahamic religion interpretation of a
that's not my
dichotomy
interpretation
of
of the
eternity.
Bible. You see, like you said, that is the general interpretation of the Bible. That's not my interpretation of the Bible. Like,
okay, tell you what.
No, not of the Bible, not of the Bible. Of
let's have
the Bible's interpretation of heaven and hell.
No, that's people's interpretation of the interpretation of the Bible.
Farmer, tell you what. I'll have Nate go through his thing here, and then what your interpretation is, I want to have you hit him back with a rebuttal of it. How's that sound?
Absolutely. No problem.
All right, let's do it.
I don't know if you're going to be talking about purgatory or not. That is definitely Abrahamic. But it is what Catholics. It is. So yeah. So here's the thing that I kind of look at though, right? So the idea is that when you do get to heaven, right, or even when you get to hell, there is past and future all become the same. There is no more past, there is no more future. Maybe the reason why is because in your spiritual being, aka maybe your energy, right, the energy that God originally placed into a human being, a human mortal body that has the brain capacity to be able to contain it, right, and you utilize it, then that energy goes back to wherever, and that energy no longer needs to try and figure out what it is in its mortal self. So therefore the past is irrelevant, but also there's no fear or any mortal thing kind of holding us back, the reason why we would instinctively be looking into the future. And so therefore there's no reason to do anything with the future, not even think about the future. We are only living in the moment. and living in the moment forever, because there is no need for future, there is no need for past. And so the idea of God creating future and past is nothing more than what you may call the mortal problem, right? Because if you have all these angels that are created that are living forever, the mortal issue is something brand new. It's the whole interpretation of death. So every single thing that every mortal being, whether it be animal or human, does is try to survive and not die. And our own genealogy, or energy, if you want to call it that, goes through reproduction to keep that going on forever, or at least as long as we possibly can. And so therefore, when you look at like, say, the angels, they have no concept of what it means to suffer. They have no concept of what it means of like past and present. They have no concept of that. Only God was the one to be like, hey, if we create these mortal beings, only they can actually figure out what past and present is, which I know, but nobody else knows, right? Because we have to live it. We have to make sure we don't make the same mistakes from the past, but we also have to make sure we don't run off a cliff trying to figure out what that means. Oh, I imagine myself falling to my death if I run off that cliff. That is in the future, right? And then I won't fall off the cliff. So
True.
That's my interpretation of living in the now in death. Based on
I'm going to hit, if we're to specifically go off the Christian view, I'll hit you with this, which is that this is something the book talks about as well. Within the Abrahamic religions, it's the idea that God says that God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. It's kind of this like paradoxical, contradictory thing. So it's this idea that the creator of the physical universe is something that transcends logic and transcends time, and it at the same time is the beginning and the end and everything in between and everything outside of it. It's like, how could something like that impose the human existence into will? Which is that, how does the human existence, is it to say that the human existence reflects something of that magnitude and level? And I think to your point, which is that like life and death are kind of the same, but it's we are able to clearly distinguish the two. So how do we marry those ideas together?
Because they are the same. They are technically the same, but just viewed differently right now.
Okay.
So in our current state, we view them differently. But as soon as we get to heaven, we're able to be like, it doesn't matter anymore. Everything's the same. And this is what's actually important.
Tell you what, let's bring Farmer in here. What you got, my man? What do you think?
Well, I'll go into Nate's thought about more of like his religious views, right? But I think his views are the interpretation of what man has made religion to be. Religion is man-made. It has nothing to do with God. You can look at all these religions in the world. It doesn't matter. Like, they're all man-made. These are people that they create institutions for worship. It has nothing to do with your belief in, you believe in a creator or not. If you want to believe in a creator, that's fine, but these institutions are not it. I personally have a problem with organized religion. I think Nate that thinks very like logical about things, but sometimes in life, some things aren't logical. Like, you just have to believe in certain things, and sometimes you just believe in things, and that's okay. Like, we can have a disagreement about that. Like, that's fine.
That's fair.
And that's the beauty about life, right? We can all have disagreements about things. That doesn't mean that we have to like insult each other and hate each other. Like, that's okay. Like, we can have different beliefs. Like, some people would just want to have faith and want to believe, and that's okay. And sometimes people just want to think logically about things and say, well, this is not possible. And to people that want to think logically, I think that you think you're here because of mathematical chance. Like, the chances that you're here alive today mathematically are damn near impossible, but here we are.
That's true. So,
Farmer Jay, could I
real quick? I'm going to interject real quick. I think we have another level to this. So, for Farmer, I like everything you said, and not everything has to believe in a creator or even these structured religious ideas. But to get to that next level, it's why do we think that humans end up kind of coming back to this singular idea or this singular question that they're trying to answer. Like, what is the question, or why does this question keep perpetuating throughout all of humans? Nate, is that in line with what you're talking about, or do you have something different?
Yeah, it's usually the same thing. Here's the thing that I just wanted to kind of say to
go for it.
Farmer
Go
here.
for it.
Logically speaking, let's use this logical brain on what you just said. Okay.
The unconscious, not being in the moment.
Logically, if I was to think about that, right? It does not matter if you just need to believe or if you need to try and figure it out, as long as it works for you and you can live a better life. That's my logical brain.
I mean, that is true, because a lot of these things that maybe we don't necessarily believe in, like the values they teach, are very important to our society, which is why we are where we are at the moment.
Absolutely. Yep. And so for that, like the logic and the belief, the faith may be a little bit disconnected, but are they really disconnected? Because they can join together. We can all live the same, right? But it's all better for society and better for humankind in general. So, and then Zenith, what was it you asked me again?
Real quick, I'll just jump in here on this point, which is that, Nate, I think you touched on kind of one of the questions that I wrestle with as the major point of my life, which is practicality versus something above that, which is like, is whatever is practical, does practical mean good? I'd argue that practical does not necessarily mean good, because you do things for a practical effect that are theoretically outside of any sort of moral system that you have. And when you deal with that moral system, the moral is the idea of the shoulds and should nots, the good versus evil, the bad versus good, that kind of thing. And it's like, you can, it's the idea of the ends justify the means, which is that if you are able to achieve a goal while also corrupting or going against your own values at the same time, does that in and of itself corrupt the end state? And it's a constant thing, which is intention with itself, I believe, and I think is a little bit, you can observe it with what's been going on in the United States, particularly around the idea of freedom versus collectivism, which is that if you go on a purely libertarian view, libertarianism is unable to defend itself from any sort of like degeneracy outside of it, because it's almost the inverse of moral relativism, because moral relativism says that whatever it is in your view is it correct to you. However, that fights libertarianism, because libertarianism says that you are trying to look out for yours and your own, and that as long as no one else is hurting you, they're free to do whatever they want. But eventually, if you try to live in a society with these opposing viewpoints, they're going to run into each other, and one is going to kind of use the other as a club or a weapon against itself. So the question when it comes to practicality, in my view, is that just because something is practical doesn't mean it's quote-unquote good. And I think that this book even has an issue with the question of like, what is good versus evil, sin versus virtue. And that the book, I would argue, is trying to persuade people that those are almost tied up within the cycle of mind, emotion, body, that you're trying to ascend that. So I don't have a clear answer on this one, but it's something that I wrestle with constantly, which is that practicality is very practical, but is it good for furthering anything other than practicality? Pass it over to the table at this one after I just confuse the hell out of everybody.
Well, no, you're talking about intention at that point, individualism. That's the scary thing about individualism, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different motivation. You know, clubbing someone over the head might be the best, most righteous thing you could possibly do based on that person. That's why a lot of people will gravitate towards collectivism, because it's like, okay, well, let's see if clubbing that guy over the head is what everybody thinks is best. You know,
I think you just hit something, which is one of the things that I think the book does not address is the idea of fighting for something, which is conflict. Is there an idea of justified conflict, or would the book just classify that back under the level of consciousness, which is that is consciousness able to fight for itself and impose itself and promote itself, or is any sort of fighting below that plane of existence? Oh, what do you guys think?
What's your thoughts, Farmer?
No. What are your thoughts? He was talking to you.
Talking to everybody, brother.
Talking
Talking to
directly
the
to me.
chat. Talking to anybody that can answer that one.
I think you really hit a real interesting spot here, Z. It's kind of like how big does a company need to get before it's too big? Before it just tramples everybody underfoot. You know? How much of a collective do people need to get before the individual is no longer an individual?
Well, I mean, to give you a bit of an inverse on this one, which is how big do you need to let your opposition get before you push back on it?
So now you're hitting competitiveness. This is what humans are in general. Now I'm sorry, but we are still, regardless of how advanced you think we are, this is 2024, baby. We are still the Serengeti monkeys running around with spears. That is our nature. That is what we do. So whenever you're talking about what's right, what's wrong, what's evil, what's good, anything like that, you always need to objectively take a step back and look at what does monkey brain say, because that's what monkey brain do. Now we have made a conscious effort wording to try to not be like that, to have a society where we work together to improve everyone's life, right? Now this shows up in really strange ways. If you look back at the 20th century, it didn't go so well. Monkey Do did not agree with Monkey Do over across the border, and it was disastrous what ended up happening, and it all had to do with beliefs, right? So I'm trying to tie this up without having to move on into a lot of different angles here. Overall, this is an incredibly complicated subject of like what's right and wrong. I think you need to sum it up probably in the simplest form, which is going to be, we do have primitive brains. We have instincts that we naturally gravitate towards, competition being one of them. Okay. But what you need to do is pull yourself outside of that, as in like a spirit, okay, a spirit self, and objectively look at yourself and see how you are acting. And then try to determine if you are the center of the universe and you are alone, or if there's others with you. And if there's others with you, there's something you can do to not only improve them, scratch my back, scratch yours, but they will also help you. And objectively, that is going to be your actual best direction to go rather than clubbing the dude over the head.
That's fair. Tell you what, unfortunately, we are coming up on the 2-hour point here. So
yeah, that took a lot of brain power to try and sum all that up.
No, it was a good summary. But at the same time, I do want to still pass around the table and make sure that everyone gets their last thoughts out on it. So with regards to this last idea, we've been talking about the idea that, or at least the question that I posed. Nate, let me know if I'm misphrasing you on this one, which is that the book has been talking about consciousness, in that you're trying to promote the idea of achieving consciousness. But if you're running into opposition of things that are preventing people from achieving consciousness, is there merit in pushing back? Nate was saying that there's an initial pressure from, like, yeah, we do fall back on the programming that we have, which is that we're going to sometimes rely on the unconscious behavior. But at the same time, is the conscious idea something that can be defended by unconscious actions, or is it something that will exist outside of people taking that unconscious action of being outside the moment?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I would just kind of add in there the conscious effort needs to be in doing in preventing that subconscious movement, aka clubbing someone.
Okay. Farmer, what you got for us?
Well, I just disagree kind of with Nate. Like, I think that just because like people on this panel are civilized doesn't mean that certain people believe that way. There's people in this world that are just, it doesn't matter what you tell them or if it's the right thing to do. They're just savages. And like, I think
we
in
need
this
to club
world,
those guys.
Yeah, those are the type of individuals you need to club. Unfortunately, they're allowed to exist in this world without consequence at the moment. Like, so that's my personal thought about that. But other than that, like my thought on the books is I thought it was a good book. And I think that everybody here read it differently because it's more of a spiritual book, right? Like it's more of your reflection on yourself and how you think about things, right? I found it a very interesting book. Like at first when he was talking about depression and killing himself, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, but then as the book got on, I think Zenith, you said it right. Like the second half of the book is what I enjoy the most. At first it was a bunch of like crap, right? But that crap kind of led to something, right? Like he was explaining all these scenarios, and like to me, I was like, I don't know about these scenarios. But then when he got to the second half, it kind of tied in with he was talking about it at the front end of the book, and so those are my personal thoughts on the book.
Hey, I like it. I know. I was talking with Cass earlier. Mrs. Producer here even had a differing view, which is that she enjoyed the first half of the book, and then the second half of the book was less interesting to her. So, I think you hit it right on the head when you said that everyone kind of got different things out of it. Which is, this is a complex book, and there's a lot of different things to take away from it. And depending on where you are and who you are, you can absolutely get different things out of it. So, other than that, toss it over to Sam. What you got? What'd you think of the book? What did you get out of it?
Man, well, excuse me. I got a little bit of extra excitement to go climb this tower is what I got. Because I'm
Hell
like,
yeah,
man,
let's go.
I'm probably gonna. Nate, you brought something up. I've not been very good about my push-ups lately, and Nate, thanks to you, I'm going to be better about it. So I appreciate that, sir. But out of the book, like, you know, I got a renewed focus on. I don't remember which one of you guys said it. One of you guys phrased it in a way that was very important. Not worrying about what I should do, focusing on what I can do right now that is going to be better for me in the future. Because I spend a lot of time, probably way too much, like I could relate very much to you, Nate. We spend a lot of time thinking about all these possibilities and stuff we could be doing. That's like, no, what can I do right now that I know will benefit me? It's like, I should just do that. That's what I got.
Pull over and 50 push-ups right now, Sam.
Why only 50? Why not 100?
Well, 50 now and then 50 every mile after.
50 every mile. Every mile, bro.
Yeah.
I go a lot of miles.
I don't know if Sam's ever going to get home at that rate or ever where he's going. So we'll
You know what?
leave it
I
up
will
to our
pull
boy
over
here.
and do 100 push-ups right now.
Can you
All right, I'll tell you
imagine anybody driving past him on like a freeway? There's just some dude on the side of the road doing push-ups when everybody else is driving past him at freaking 80 miles an hour. Like, okay,
Is
no,
it-
let's not do that, Sam.
Is that the strangest thing you've seen in the world? I'd argue no.
Nah.
Bro, is he actually going to do
Whatever.
this? 100 right on stream.
All right, tell you what, Nate, pick it up from here. Final
gonna take
thoughts on
me a
the
minute.
book. Final thoughts.
So
on the book,
final
my man.
thoughts. While Sam is doing this, I got one more thing, one more topic I can bring up. Something that really hit me hard while I was reading through this.
Maybe not a final topic, but final thoughts on the book.
Okay, final thoughts on the book. Final thoughts on the book. It was interesting. Originally had me a little bit like, oh great, I really don't care to listen to this woo-woo bullshit. And then I started listening into it. I'm like, wait a minute, if I kind of like move these words around to make more sense for myself, this is a very good book, and there is a lot of very actionable things that I can do. And I personally really liked it. There's also a lot of metaphysical type things in it that it's like, okay, well, the only thing that this is going to be is, as Will likes to say, campfire stories, you know? Is it real? Is it not? Like, we know the ether is real, but I mean, does our energy come out of us and actually go there in consciousness? It's a theory, you know, it's a story. Is it real? Is it not? I don't know. However, with that being said, it is not only A, fun to think about, but B, it's also, it helps you improve your own life, live your own life, but also those around you, directly around you, in which helped me to think, hey, I'm thinking too much in the future. I need to start maybe being a little more present for you, babe. And that's just kind of what I was thinking. Freaking Sam over there. Hey Sam, what'd you think about it?
Let me breathe. Hold on.
My God.
Hold
Tell
on, I
you
got
what,
20
you
left.
breathe, brother. You breathe. We'll pass it
An
over.
example of living in the now.
This
He said,
motherfucker is
"Do this,
actually doing
I'm
it.
gonna do this now."
He is in the
Perfect.
now. Correct, Jenna.
Yeah!
He's crazy in all the best ways. And that is
Fucking go!
why we love him. Speaking of which, Mrs. McGinnis, Mrs. Producer, what you got for us? Sam, catch your breath. We got Mrs. Producer
right.
telling us her final thoughts.
So final thoughts on the book.
Also, give Nate a high five when you can.
There
There we
okay,
go.
close enough. Whatever. I actually liked it. Like Zenith said, I liked the first half more than the bottom half, though. For me, the first few chapters seemed more practical and more based in logic. That, from what I understood, maybe I read it completely wrong, but that could be. But I got most of my quotes from the first few hours of listening to this, and then the second tail end of the book, the second half, sorry, kind of lost me a little bit because it went more into like death is an illusion, and like he kept going into like this or that is an illusion. It felt like there was too much of that, and it's like, okay, but death is the ultimate end of life. It is not an illusion. It is a definite. It is something that we're going to have to face. What happens after death is debatable. I personally agree with Farmer, and I think most of the rest of us here that I think there is something after it, and we continue to move on. And the physical death of the body is not the actual death of our spirits and our souls and our consciousness, and that is something more. So there's that, but at the same time, it was just put in a strange way to me, and I didn't really. It kind of got too much into the like, all right, bro, sure, you do your thing. I'm just gonna go over here, and you can go do that.
I think your synopsis of "all right, bro" is possibly one of the best examples you can give.
All right, well, fair enough then. But the first half I liked it better. I got more quotes out of the first half. It was too many almost. I wanted to continue just pausing and writing down quotes, but I was like, no, I need to actually listen to this and get through it, because otherwise I'll be here for the next week. There was also a lot of things. There was also a lot of things and a lot of times where I wanted to kind of interject into the conversation tonight, but you guys were cooking, and I didn't want to like mess up the flow or interrupt. And I mean, it was great. It was a great stream.
Dave's cooking.
But, there you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
apologies. We were rolling pretty hard there. So it's hard to get.
Oh no,
in.
it's fine. There wasn't really too many chances to get a word in edgewise, but I mean, it is what it is. The stream was great, and I would have just been adding into everything that you guys were already saying, so it's not like anything was missed. You know what I mean? On my list of 1 to 10, which I don't have a list of 1 to 10, by the way. This is completely made up, so everything could be on my list of 1 to 10 as far as we know, because it will change whenever you ask me about anything specific. But I would say at least give this one a look. It does go into the religious and the spiritual stuff, and like I said, I kept thinking about the Avatar scene. That was so stuck in my head like the whole time. I'm so glad that I'm not the only person who went there, because Zenith, you brought it up immediately. So that was that was nice to hear, because I'm not alone in that just being a constant in my brain. But I mean, even if you're not religious or spiritual or any of that, there's still some very good things to listen to into this, especially one of the main points that he really emphasized that I have been trying to practice in my life over the last like 10 years is to not react immediately to something when it upsets me, is to be able to let those things roll off your back, because in my mind, and this is something that we talk about in the communities that I'm in, another person who comes into your energy, into your field, and wants to argue with you, make your life harder, make something difficult, make you have to stress or worry or whatever, is not worth your time or your energy. They are coming in for a reaction. You're giving them what they want by giving them that reaction. So just don't do it. And that's something that he kind of talks about that I think is just very important for people to try and realize and to understand, that this is your life. You're doing whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do. Do not let other people come into your life and stress you out. If somebody is coming into your life and they're not adding value and they're only adding stressors, you got to do what you got to do. Cut them off. Get rid of it. Figure it out. Take care of you first, because you are the only person who can take care of you. At the end of the day, nobody else can do that for you. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of my biggest takeaway from the book.
Hey, good stuff. Love it. Yeah, I thought this was a fantastic conversation. Honestly, like we mentioned previously, we could keep going for a long time on this one, but we do have to call it at some point. So this is a decent point as always. So for my final thoughts, I'll read it through this is not going to help you become a better investor per se. However, this is definitely a philosophy book, and there are multiple ways to look at it. You could theoretically look at it from the complete logical way and say that there's all these different contradictions and things make sense and don't make sense, and then roll back over on themselves. But at the same time, you could look at it from another perspective, or a different axis of thinking, which is that this is trying to attack things on that spiritual, religious kind of soul level, and that things don't have to make sense, but they're trying to convey an idea or a feeling, which is a push towards the truth that is something larger than your human existence. And if you attack it from that perspective, you don't have to take everything as word per se, but at the same time, you can still find something in here. And that is why I would say that this read is not a wasted read. There's something to find, whether or not you agree with what is being said or not. That is what I got for that. So other than that, I'll say next week on Book Club, we're going back to Sci-Vive, and we're going to be covering Time and Space. That's chapters 7 and 8. So collectively, that should be about 2.5, 3 hours-ish of audiobook time if you do the Wild SJ version. But that is what we got for this. I'm Zenith. You can find me on Zenith DI, and I'm going to pass it over to the rest of the crew to see where we can find you guys on the socials and what you got going on soon. So first off, Nate, what you got, brother?
Real quick, we did have a couple of comments. One specifically.
Yes. Tell you what, I'll hit these real quick. Yeah, we got, first and foremost, we have a super chat.
Really quick. Everybody, it's time for our last round of chat shoutouts.
All right, first up, we have a super chat. We have 5 Justin Trudeau bucks from Brother64. He says, just popped in. Last 5 minutes were fire. By the way, this was at 7:40 p.m., so that was like, oh gosh, that was almost 45 minutes ago at this point. But at the same time, hope you enjoyed it. And by all the comments that we've got since then, it seems like everyone has been keeping up and really engaged with it. It has been a blast. We also have a good friend of the channel who showed up. That is Paul Sachs. Up. I don't know what this was in reference to.
I'll give us the context really quick. We were talking about our favorite flavor of crayon, and Alan said his was white, and then Paul popped in with this.
There it is. That makes more sense now. Good ribbon between friends, because that's what we all are here. We're all trying to better ourselves and seek the truth in different ways, whether it's investing or if you're in book club for the book club stuff, as Tam seems to enjoy it, so I hope she's not the only one. But yeah, we got a lot of good stuff here going on. Anyways, now that we've covered our bases, Nate, what you got, brother? Where can the people find you?
All right, yeah, you can find me. I am the Ascending Man, Nate McGettit with the DJ Roundtable. And you can go ahead and find me on my link tree, which I'll probably pull up here soon enough. But yes, I'm always in the DJ Roundtable Telegram. You can go ahead and reach me there with any questions or anything you need help with. Just go ahead and scan that QR code that's right directly under the Farmer JE. Easiest way to get in there. There is some really good materials coming in. I got a couple of different presentations, we'll just say, that are going to take a lot of work. This is some very technical deep dive type of things, but I'll tell you what, if you listen to me as soon as I bring these things out, it is going to help you so much. And I'm even going to be putting like strategies in there about how to make money. But like I said, it is very technical, and especially with this week, I was putting together quite literally 3 shows just this week alone. Some of them had to get moved back. But yeah, look forward to me going on some other friends of the channel's shows. We will be doing some more deep diving into some really technical and fun stuff. So just kind of look out for that. You know, if you're in the channel, we'll definitely be putting them in there. And as long as you're in there, you will be learning. You'll be learning. You're going to get you're going to get saved, kind of like we had someone just recently who just got saved from a scam. So, I mean, there's protection in there. There's learning in there. You're going to be able to make money in there. Absolutely get in there. I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Sam Stevenson, Bungalow for Bachelors. What's going on with you, bro?
Hey, Nate, thank you for passing it off to me. That's right. Bungalows for Bachelors, guys. That's my community. And I've got some exciting news to share with you guys today because, boy, howdy, have I been working hard over the past few days deciding to take some real action. And I have finally completed my home design program for you guys. This is the most valuable, most compact, most value dense thing I can give you guys so far. And I'm going to keep making it better every day. Now, basically what this is you guys, if you ever want to think about building a house or any residential project or anything, any kind, whatever, you got to think about design. In order to do that, you have to talk to a designer. That costs you lots of money. Okay. I happen to be a designer, but instead of you paying me lots of money, I created this thing for free. And basically it's this little course on YouTube where you can basically I'll find a way to throw in the DJ community a link to it or something. But you go on and I'm giving you my template files that are my, what's the word? Word doesn't matter. They're my secret company files that I've developed over my 5 years of drawing that are super fast, super efficient, super great, all this stuff. And I have put them available for you guys for free in my Telegram. So you can download them. That's right. You can take them. Anybody can have them. And you're going to combine it with the YouTube class that I created. And then you basically only have to pay $200 to the software company that has the architectural license, right? I just use their software. Get a license from them. It gets you a whole month. And you take this little class thing, you take my files, and you can draw whatever you want, guys. And this is the value of this is at least over $3,000 to $5,000. This is how much it costs to engage in this process. So crazy value savings. Check it out. I'm here to help you guys win. And not only that, but I have a special thing I'm doing right now, guys. I am accepting 5 people. 5 people. I'm going to draw them a plan for free. That is correct. There are only 3 left. All right. So DM me on Telegram or somewhere in writing if you want one of those 3 spots. Don't tell me with words. DM me so it's in writing and I've got a date, the timestamp, and all that stuff. But I'm doing 3 more, guys. It could be a custom home. It could be a farm you want to, who knows what it's going to be, a barn. It could be a duplex. It could be a real estate opportunity up to 4 units. Guys, this is it. So this is what I got for you guys. You can follow me at Telegram, which is t.me/BFB success. That's where I got all of my stuff available for you guys. And yeah, that's it. So I'm excited to help people build stuff. That's what I do.
Love it. All right, Farmer, where can the people find you?
I got nothing exciting like Sam going on here, but you can just find me in the Telegram chatting on the book club, That's about it. I'll let Miss McGetty close it out before you get to Zenith.
Much appreciated. Mrs. Producer, the spot is yours. What you got for us?
No, not much as usual. Farmer and I are usually the people of few words at this point because we're just in the DGen Roundtable. You want to meet us? Click that QR code, Farmer, if you wouldn't mind pointing at that once again. A little bit. There you go. Close enough. You get the point. It's somewhere down there. Yeah, hop in there. Even if you don't want to talk to us because maybe you think we're boring people, somebody in here brought up GME, and Jay wants to go ahead and tell you, hey, bro, we're talking about that. Get in the Telegram. So there you go. We do talk about all these things in there. There's a ton of stuff going on that Telegram. So get in there if you're not in there. If you're not in there, I don't know what you're doing with your time. So, and that's all I got. Thanks away, Z.
Much appreciated. Yeah, get in the Telegram. There's a lot that goes on there that is not available on YouTube. For instance, if you are particularly interested in what Jay is talking about when it comes to GME, other market updates, everything aside from that, they do Tuesday calls. Jay also does his technical analysis calls that is not available on YouTube. So if you want to see those recordings or catch it live, you got to be in the Telegram. And that is
you can even ask him questions live.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
Yep. Real quick, Z. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but Jay also does the Friday fitness Telegram calls as well. So if you have any fitness questions, hop in there. He's eager and excited to answer them. He hasn't been getting too many. These last 2 weeks, it's slowed down a bit. So if you got any questions, you want to talk to him, hop in. He'd be happy to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. The reason that we shout out the Telegram and tell people to get in there is because that is the way that we actively talk to the community. We post theories, ideas, random memes, a lot of the fitness stuff. If you want to suggest stuff for book club, even, you got to do it in there pretty much. So Telegram is the place that a lot of things happen. And that's the place to be. So again, if you are not in there already, you have to go to either the URL bit.ly/degenerate_roundtable, or you just scan the QR code and that'll take you to it. That is what we got. Also, I believe there's a link in the description as well, so it even is just a few clicks away. That is what we got. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter/X at ZenithDI. That is where I do a lot of my personal stuff. Or you can check out the meme page, Hexaco Space Force, or Hex Space Force, on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube for memes and a little bit of edutainment, we'll call it, education and entertainment. And then we were going to close out with this comment from Moondog. He says, Zenith, absolutely good, sir. Thank you for facilitating at all and so spectacularly on that. Got good vibes shaking your hand in Vegas and nothing but positive reinforcement since that. I want to shout out a member of our community who's been awesome for this stream and a bunch of the other ones previously. We appreciate everyone like Moondog and Moondog himself for showing up. So, Mrs. Producer, get the trigger finger ready. So, like that being said, I know it's been a bit of a long one, but at the same time, we hope that we provided value to you because time is your most valuable asset, and we thank you for spending it with us every time. So, until we catch you guys on Sunday, I want everyone to continue to degen responsibly.